Welcome to Self Perfected.
All right.
What's up, everybody?
We're here.
So I was just telling Drake. Yeah.
You just
I was just
stole
telling
Mitch's
Drake.
line.
Hey, I mean, there's
You
here.
don't say it for
and
the
then there's
podcast.
here.
Fair game, man.
Yeah. There's being here, and then there's being here.
And then
Okay, so
there's
we're here.
and then there's beings here.
Yeah. And then you're hearing this. So hear this. So Drake and I were just talking about how you misplace your phone charger, and it's like, some people like are devastated by that. I'm so stable because I've been walking my process for so long. Nonetheless, I was like, where's my damn phone charger? And it turns out it was just where it was the whole week. But there's a new week. Okay. So last week, Jess and I were talking about this of like, I was basically, long story short, I was like, I'm going to get up at 4 a.m. every day this week. But I was like, those critical moments when you get out of bed and then you're like, but like, dark and cold and whatever. So we're like, okay, I'm going to put my phone under the desk across the room. So it's going to go off. And then I have to go over there and, get it off. That's just where my phone charger was. It was just in the new strategic spot, but I couldn't find it.
I'll give it. We talk about a lot of things on this podcast, but I also want to do a new section called like tips. And
tips on how to wake up.
What I've found is that my phone or my phone charger is I always find it the last place I left it. So store that one away.
How do you do that, Cameron?
How do I come up with these tips?
I need to know the how.
Yeah, you just go to the place that you left it. There it is.
Damn.
There was someone I was talking to the other day. You would know them, but I will keep them as anonymous. And we were talking about making the decision to like take on the process like fully. And it's not who I was just referring to. It's someone else.
Okay.
It was actually this person was supporting that person. And the person's like, yeah, but like, just how do I make that decision? Like, how do I make the decision to like take this on fully? It's like kind of funny because it's like, what do you mean? You just fucking
okay. Check this out. How do you raise your arm?
You just do it.
Okay, I'm gonna.
But how? How do I do it?
You just do it.
Isn't that the same as making a decision? Like you literally if there is no how you do it, it's you. That's the part that is you. Yeah. If you like, how do I make a decision and you can't figure that out? That means you don't fucking exist.
Dude, so it's so cool because man, the TT hangout that we did, or actually no, the self-perfected hangout and then leads into the TT hangout.
That was like, this is like a new era. Dude, I'm not kidding. Like a new level has unlocked.
So okay. I was not hosting it because I was during that meeting, I was visiting with the Spahars, and as with like my mom and Veronica, my wife.
So were you guys all watching it or what?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
yeah. We weren't gonna miss it.
The whole time Drake's just freaking trolling me through the chat. I'm like, Jesus, Drake.
We had a great time. But Mitch and Mayor led the call. And it was just basically like Mitch had a few questions for everybody, right? And those questions were, what were the questions, Mitch?
Okay, it was because I just wanted to hear
phone
from
charger.
How do you remember?
How do you remember to get up?
How do you make a decision?
How do I move my arm?
The questions were like,
and Jewel. He was like, I just do it, man. Gracie's awesome. Sunny's awesome. Yeah. I'm awesome. I just do it. That was my direct quote of Jewel. No, okay. So I wanted. It was like pretty last minute. I didn't know if I was hosting or I thought maybe Drake or Mayor was, but then they're like, no, like, you can host. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I just want to hear from everyone in the group. Well, not everyone. Sometimes you get some new people who come on and then they think they're really
don't want to hear from you specifically.
But once a week we have to boot someone from the group who just not understanding whatsoever and they just want to be special. But anyway, that's beside the point. So I had people answer the question of what does the phrase best relationships and best community mean to you? And then the next question was, what do you see as your points in the group? Like, what is their point of responsibility? What are they bringing to the table? And then the third one was, what message do you have for the group?
Yeah.
And yeah, back to you.
Dude, it was so good. It was so good because those questions were like, we were asking people who we've been seeing walk in the process, right? And so
like everyone who answered, or everyone who I called on was married, right? Or engaged. Shout out Kyler and Latanya.
Yeah. And so everyone,
another couple from my house, from
But Cameron, how do you know the process works, Cameron? Okay.
right.
Yeah.
The process for me is just host an event at the house.
Yeah. It's a pretty good process. It works.
It does work.
Yeah. So it was great because all these couples were just sharing how they've walked this process and how they're supporting one another and how they're supported by this group, and really, just sharing like what Jewel was sharing about Gracie, of just being so supportive. Like, he's going out there door knocking, right? And the first week that he went out to do it, his back chat that he was sharing was really cool. He was like, yeah, I was thinking it's going to be too hard for her. I got to be home. I can't just leave her at home alone or whatever. And when he gets home, he asks her like, hey, so how was it? And she's like, it wasn't that bad. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. And he's like, okay, I can go back out there. Like, she doesn't need me, actually.
Yeah, women are actually a lot stronger than people realize. Or
hold on, listen to this. She goes, actually, it was really challenging. It was really challenging, but I knew that if I said that, it would hold him back and he would stay here.
Interesting.
So she stepped up to like support him. It was like, it's not that bad. Like, I can handle it.
That's
right.
Cool.
It's so fucking cool. So fucking cool. The support that each one is giving to one another. And, obviously it's cool to hear everybody's individual stories, but then at the same time, just how the community itself is supporting everyone as well. And so it's not just, oh, me and my partner, we're really awesome. It's my partner and I are really awesome because of the support that we get through the community, and we're able to reach out to other people. We're able to reach out and share with other people as well. And it's just like this, symbiotic relationship. Oh. So, I sent you guys that interview that I was listening to, just yesterday, right?
Which one?
And the Shiva interview, right?
Oh,
I didn't send it, actually.
I'll say, do you send it from Christine's phone?
I was driving, so I was like, send this to
them. You had your assistant send it.
I had my assistant. But anyway.
I didn't watch. I only watched up to it because I was doing other stuff. I only watched up to the point where he joins and he's like, how is everything going? How are you guys doing? That was pretty much all I've heard.
That's like, okay, dude. So it's good. It's good. There's a moment where Shiva talks about, basically, he gives a lot of context to it. I'm not going to give all the context, but how the elite have a like mechanistic view of society, of the laws of the universe, even, where it's like, oh, if we can get all these data points, we can predict the future and we can see what happened in the past and all this, right? But he was saying that exists actually in a world of chaos, essentially. It's like there's chaos, and then within the chaos, there's actually these rules that we can predict, which is really interesting.
Can I add something real quick before you go further, just so people can hear my take before it's like influenced by what you're going to say?
Sure.
My answer to that point of like, because the objection might come up with somebody says, well, but it's self-perfected destiny technology. You're saying that, you can create a world that's best for all. So you can like predict every single outcome of everything. And it's like, it's not quite what we're saying. Like, we're saying if you have an effective reasoning ability and you have the right principles, you'll always be able to work out what will be the best course of action. It's not if I change this variable, then I'm going to change that person. And like, you see every person as a number and all this. It's not that it's like a living expression where everybody is evaluating all the information that they have access to and their decisions and their relationships and their, first of all, I've structured everything in a way where it's best. So you don't have ego points going into the relationship. So it's not a mechanistic control. It's just the outflow of you taking responsibility within yourself for who you are and what you accept and allow. So I just want to put that point in there.
So you're gonna love this. You're gonna love this, right? Because he says that, and then he's like, but what they found was they did some experiments where they took like a bunch of ping pong balls, a bunch of black ping pong balls and a bunch of white ping pong balls, and they put them in a tank, and then they've got air blowing, so they're all just like, buzzing around or whatever. And what you would expect is that when you look at the tank, it just looks
the white
gray.
ones have enslaved the black ones. That's where this is going, right?
Actually,
the white ones have their knee on the black one's neck. They've created like zoning laws, and yeah, I know. Actually, I know the story.
Okay, so you've seen it before. Yeah. But what you would expect is like you'd see a lot of that what's that called, white noise, whenever you're watching the television, and it's just like static, right? Because it's just a bunch of black and white dots just appearing.
That's going to be the name of my solo podcast, by the way.
Oh, okay. Well,
it's white noise.
And you could occasionally have Mitchell on there. That would work.
And then
you too noisy.
I know. Sorry.
What? You're not black though.
I'm not white either.
You're just very tan.
Drake, we're just gonna make a deepfake version of you.
That's Drake. I want to stay friends with you. So just let me believe you're a very tanned white person. Who knows how to dance?
Well, we'll see. We'll see what the rules are in the upcoming.
I just like to interject these jokes to keep everybody in suspense. Just so everyone understands my method. It's like, I know you're about to get to the point that I'm like, oh, let's just step back for a second. It's like, I don't know if you've ever done this, but it's like if you're having sex and you like, just like you're almost about to go in, and then you pull away, and she's like, no. And you can tell, like, she's like, please. And then you're like, okay, a little bit more. Nope. It's actually pretty fun. It's like it's a form of a torture, but it's like in a good way.
It's fun, but then
it's
also challenging sometimes, because you're like, you want to be in there too,
Oh, I have no feeling down there. It's easy for me.
Oh, okay. All right. Never mind. But okay, so this tank, what happens is what you would expect is you'd see just a bunch of gray because of randomly black and white. But what actually happens is, yes, there is gray, but then there's something called a chemical clock or chemical time clock, something like that. Anyway, but what happens is randomly, it'll be all of a sudden all white.
Okay. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden all black. And then all of a sudden all white for some random period of time and all black. And their explanation.
Do you ever tutor chemistry?
No, not really.
But do you like the whole van der Waals forces? When you say the intermolecular forces. So it's like you have like all these positive, negative floating around. Yeah. But then randomly what'll happen is a few positives or a few negatives or whatever, something will start attracting over here. And it'll suddenly for a moment, like in a flash, like be like more positive, more negative on one side. So it creates a temporary polarity, even though it's like a non-polar molecule. So it just made me think of that point. It's like for this moment, it's like polarized.
Yes.
So because of that constant, because there's so many molecules and it's happening all the time, there's those moments like just every second, let's say, because there's billions of them, where it creates a certain stickiness to the molecules, a certain overall polarity, even though they're not technically polar.
Yes. And so their explanation for it is those molecules are communicating with one another, right? And so you what you would expect is this just random chaos, but actually there is order within that chaos, right? And so it's this point of...
So communication is the key to order within chaos, to ordering chaos.
Boom. Fucking, you let me do all the fucking talking and then you steal my thunder there.
Oh,
right?
Sorry.
Classic white man. Wow. Just come in at the very end.
Just coming in after I do all the work. After
I just put a verbal knee on your neck.
All the work. Yeah.
A linguistic knee.
But that point being just like, okay, how did we get on this topic? Do you guys remember?
You're talking about Shiva. Well, you're talking about Julian Gracie.
Yes. Like... Okay. Yes. Thank you. So look at that. It's like the relationships of everyone within the group is creating this not just ability to communicate. There is a symbiotic relationship even with us within our group because of the way that we are positioning ourselves. Let me rephrase that. Because of the way that we are educating ourselves, because of the way that we are actually supporting ourselves to see what is best for all. Man, so I was thinking about this the other day. It's so cool because I was thinking about how, you know, like some religious people are very vocal about their religion or whatever, and they really want you to join them, or they don't care what you think about their religion, right?
Right.
And I was thinking, like, you know, how do I support those people with, you know, if they're asking me about destiny, right? And not just like just a random person on the street, not somebody who's obviously got the full context, somebody who doesn't have TechnoTutor yet, right? And what I was realizing is like, actually, destiny is the feature, and TT is the vocabulary, the understanding, so that they can understand that. You get what I'm trying to say with that? It's like,
what do you mean by the feature? Because
as
I
in-
would have formulated it that destiny is the vocabulary. Not to contradict what you're saying, but that's just how I look at it.
No,
Meaning
what
it
I-
is the context. How about that?
what I mean to say is like,
Yeah.
it's like somebody picks up the Bible, you know, and they're like, this is fucking gobbledygook, right? Which I don't blame them, right? But then you've got somebody trying to give them the understanding of like, well, no, here's the context that you need for that, and like you go in and they read it again, and they're like, oh, this just makes a lot of sense, right? That's the thing that is supposed to guide them, right? Destiny is the thing that's like, that is the thing that you actually want, but you can't understand it.
Okay.
TechnoTutor gives you that understanding.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just sharing that because it's like within our group, we have so many beautiful young couples getting together who are just like, or not just getting together, but like taking on this process. And we're all together as well, even though we're not even in the same physical space, all of us, you know, like we have clubhouses here, clubhouses there, which is awesome. But we get on these hangouts, and then we share with one another, we connect with one another, and it's supporting us to have amazing relationships, obviously, like evidenced by everyone who shared. I don't even remember how many couples, but there were so many couples that shared, and they just went deep, just fucking deep with like what best relationships is, what best community is, why this community is, and they were sharing like really why this community is so supportive for them. And then they were sharing about what they bring. This is my favorite part. Like, what are their points within this community? Like, what they bring to the community is what they started sharing. And they were just like, man, like, you know, I'm here because I represent this point. Like I can help people who have this, who have walked this point or this or that, whatever, right? And it's just like, whoa, they were taking it to the next level of responsibility within themselves, you know? Because it's like, it's really easy from a certain perspective to be like, oh, this is Mitch's group. Oh, this is Cameron's group. Oh, you know, these guys, whatever. But to see the responsibility that everyone is taking. Like when I joined Self Perfected, I was not part of the admins or whatever. It was something that I was just like, oh, this is my fucking group though. Like this is my group. I want to be as much a part of it as possible. Let me start messaging people as they come into the group. You know, all this stuff that I was just taking on as responsibility because I was like, this is my fucking group, you know? As in, not like I own the group, but I have responsibility over it. I want to see this grow and flourish. You know, this is as much a part of what I'm doing that I'm doing, right? And seeing everyone else in the group also take that on, that responsibility of just like, here's what I'm bringing to the group. Here's the message I need to share with the group. That was just so powerful, so beautiful. And especially within the context of, I don't think we've talked about this on the podcast yet, but we definitely talked about it throughout the week of the loneliness epidemic going on. You know, where if you look out on the world, everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people, a fuck ton of people are experiencing this loneliness within them. Even if they have relationships, they're lonely. And I was even sharing this in my clubhouse, like, do you see that? And everyone's like, yeah. Everyone recognizes people
It's
are
fascinating, because like when I look at it for myself, I'm like, that is not a problem for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I remember the closest I ever was to that loneliness was I don't know, five or so years ago, well before I met everyone here. I was traveling in South America, and the only person I knew was like, there's I think 2 people in the whole group. And I was there because I was like, yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna go travel and find myself, whatever. And for like a week, there's like the initial high, like, oh yeah, wow, new place, new food, this is so cool. And then, then I remember there was a Friday night, and I was walking around. I was like listening to your Wish Your Command, like walking around, and then I'm just like this feeling. I like had to turn it off, and I was like, what am I gonna do with myself? I don't know how to talk to people here. I'm going to be gone in a month anyway. So like no relationship is going to really be meaningful. And just this feeling of, it's like dread, but it was more than dread. It was this like haunting loneliness of like, I don't think anyone around me actually cares about me. This is really intense. Like I don't have anyone to talk to. And like it's a Friday night, and I was so used to like, oh, Friday night, hang out with the people, even though it wasn't inspiring at all to like normally hang out with the quote unquote friends I would have. I would still do it just to not be alone.
Yeah.
And that was really wild. And that was like a little glimpse of like, this is what's possible, and not in a good way.
Yeah. When I was saying earlier that I don't have that problem, like I definitely had it. You know what I mean? And that was really, if I look at it, it's like, well, I mean, a couple points, like, because you said that point of you were looking for yourself. Okay. Or are you trying to find yourself is what you said, right? It's fascinating because like, okay, let's just break that down for a second.
Hang on. I know what you want to say. You are where you left yourself the night before. Duh.
Sort of.
Okay.
I would break this down for a bit. Okay, so all these people are trying to find themselves. That's what the transgender thing, in essence, is an expression of.
Yeah,
it's like an attempt of trying to find who you are and get comfortable and like kind of just it's something that everybody goes through. It's just the current expression of that's become popularized, right? Of like looking. I don't want to say purpose, although that's obviously a part of it, but it's like trying to find yourself, right? But within it, it's like, it's when you realize, oh, the self that I'm trying to find is actually me. It's just me without anything else. It's me. And then who am I? And what do I stand for? And like, at the end of the day, the choice between to do what is best or not, that is the self. That is when I'm saying I'm trying to find myself. It's like, that's the self that you're actually looking for. Okay. And I was thinking, man, if anybody wanted to create a shirt like this or something, or maybe it doesn't have to be a shirt. Maybe it could be like a diagram for like a PDF, like those, what do you call those things? Like infographic kind of, I don't know, something cool. Like people be creative, but if you do something like this would be cool. Like imagine something where it's like looking for purpose. Right. Because I saw like when I drive down the street, there's like this church and it says looking for hope. People have the yard signs in their house. Right. And imagine like some kind of a map, and it's got like Techno Tutor and Destiny and Self Perfected. And like, I don't know, like somebody could figure out like the best way to present all that graphically, but like, and it's like, you are here, like those maps in the mall.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm bringing up you are here is because it's like when you said, oh, I was trying to find myself, and I'm like, and I was going to try to make a joke of like, oh, did you think you were out there? Do you know what I mean? Like, did you think you were in Nicaragua or where the fuck you went? You know what I mean? Like, did you think you were in there? Like you're here.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm trying to find myself. I'm trying, and it's like, but you're here. Like you're in physical reality and you're trying to find yourself. But the reality is, look at the fucking world. That's you. So who are you in relation to that? And what are you going to do about it? And are you going to actually take it seriously, investigate? And like, that's part of the education process. It's like people will try to claim. It's like when you look at religion, for example, right? You have all these rules. I was thinking, did you guys ever have this? Like you wake up in the morning and like that moment when you're laying there, you start having all these like ideas about stuff, right? Mm-hmm. Most people get that in the shower. I rarely shower. So maybe that's why I get it.
You've been suppressed. It has to come out in a different way.
It has to come out like right when I'm waking up. But I was like thinking about this point of like how, maybe it was triggered by when you were talking about you were visiting people over the weekend, Drake, and like nobody was drinking and nobody was offering you to drink. You know what I mean? Like it was a really cool point, right? And I was thinking about how if you went to, also because Guion, right? Remember that interview you did with Guion, by the way? That was a fucking awesome podcast.
Dude.
And it also is even more to the point that you were making, Drake, about it being like, it's not just this is a Bernard thing or a Avery Cameron or whatever. It's like, it's everybody. So it's like, I was at the farm with Guion. I'm not even involved in that podcast. It's Mitch doing his own solo podcast. It was just so cool to see that. But that point he made about when he worked with those Muslims at the car dealership and then they would have the parties and drink and he wouldn't drink. Yeah. And I was like thinking about this of like, it's like, we're not saying we don't drink because it's a rule in our fucking religion. There's no rule in Destiny says you can't drink.
Right.
There's no rule until perfected. Like there's no, I'm not going to allow people to drink around my kids, but that's a different point. But I'm not going to, I'm still going to say something, but and does it make sense? I'm saying it's not a rule. There's no written rule. It's like, you can't drink. If you break that rule, you're not a Destonian or something. No, but I'm drinking because I have made the decision. It makes sense not to.
Yeah.
No one does that in religion.
Right.
Like generally speaking. Right. No one's like, it's like, I don't drink because Allah forbids it. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, but why does he forbid it?
I don't know. I just listen to Daddy.
And so if he does, if it's about, there's a common sense to it, why the fuck do you need Allah to tell you that? Or whoever.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if Jesus said, do this or don't do that, like, is it because Jesus said it or is it because it makes fucking sense? And that's why when you look at the Destiny principles, it's the common sense distilled from all of those, if you want to say religious, spiritual paths, whatever, and all the bullshit taken out because it's just evaluated with common sense and self-honesty as to what's the outflow of that.
Yeah.
Right. But just to wrap the point up, my point was just that it's like when people are trying to find themselves, just realize you're already here. There's nothing to find. Now you have to say, okay, here's the new starting point I want to live by. And you have to recreate yourself along those lines. You're not going to find it because when you find it, what's the starting point of finding?
It was lost.
Yes. And isn't it therefore searching?
Yeah. Searching in separate.
And that's why with Destiny, we say the search is over. Hey, that's another part you could put on this t-shirt. Okay. Looking for purpose. The search is over, and it's like a map, and it's got like Destiny or something. It's like you are here, but with a capital H. I don't know. Somebody will be more creative than me, but I just think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
So,
okay,
I know Aaliyah's good at graphic design. Shout out Aaliyah.
There you go.
Good.
So that point that you're bringing up as far as like meaning, like people don't have meaning in their lives. That's like something that I was sharing with Mitch this morning was just that point. Like, I woke up and I had some thoughts, the shower thoughts, right? Because probably I didn't take a shower yet.
But again, searching for meaning, it's like the same thing of like trying to find yourself. It's like, I'm looking for a meaning.
Because people don't have, okay, even in religion, even in your own life where it's like, you're searching for yourself, like, am I a boy or a girl or who am I? Like even, okay, you take a bunch of like LSD or whatever, and you're just like, I just want to find me. I want to get to the root of me. I don't want to be in this society, whatever society's, said.
Are you like slam poetry reciting right now? You're like,
Dude,
I'm trying to find me, get to the core of me. I'm trying to reject society, Yo,
it's just Drake, I think you would do really good with slam poetry.
Probably
Yeah,
so.
that I'm going
You
to
just gotta draw out the words,
yeah.
and then randomly speed them up, and then
It's just a
and then
cadence
also have
thing.
something clever to say, I guess.
I saw I was thinking about this because Mitch, you had posted that one guy talking about how you probably don't remember a whole page in a book. Like if you think of your favorite book or any book and you try to recite an entire page, like
My
word for
4-year-old does.
your 4-year-old does.
She actually does.
I know,
so
I
awesome.
know.
Anyways,
That's so cool.
But the average person
yeah.
does not.
Because we
But
don't know how to fucking read. But anyways,
you can remember an entire song, right? And the guy was saying it's because of like the tone, you know, and so the tone and the pitch, whatever. But
also because sound is like has a more physical impact on your body.
yeah,
That's why songs get stuck in your head, but not like you said, like pages of a book or something. Right?
Don't get stuck in your head.
Because it's like inside resonating. It's like replaying inside it. I remember one time we were joking about that on a Destiny chat, and Bernard said, yeah, I call it he's like, because somebody's like, do you ever hear like music playing in your head? He was like, yeah, I call it Bernard radio. Like he was like joking around.
I love that.
You know, that point about meaning though, it's like we were talking about this right before we started recording. It's like so your meaning is your religion. So people have religion because there is no meaning in their life, which was your point, right? Like it's meaningless.
I was going
right?
to get back to it eventually.
Oh yeah, well, but
he was just trying to figure out how to slam poetry.
But so you choose fucking religion, and then how does that actually give you any real meaning? It's like, yeah, this is meaningless, and like I'm just going to be in heaven with God. How is that meaning? That's just some arbitrary like.
Well,
you're gonna hang out.
It's fear. It's fear because it's the classic sales pitch. I've said this many times. I don't know if I ever said it on the podcast, but the reason that right now religion is still so pervasive is because between age 0 and 7, when most people don't have the vocabulary, you know, we got some 4 and 6-year-olds and 5-year-olds who got it. But when you're that young and you're getting imprinted with all of that energy and that fear of if you're good, you go to heaven or get presents at Christmas. If you're bad, you go to hell or, you know, don't get your present.
Coal.
That is just a fucking way parents use to manipulate their child to constantly be like good, bad, like don't be bad, be good. And how do people not see through that because they're so dumb?
It's so
think
funny.
about it though. It is the ultimate sell, which is then if you are good, you get pleasure infinitely. And if you're bad, you get the worst pain infinitely. And that,
but it's so arbitrary. What is good?
Yeah.
It's not like make sure everybody in this world has their basic needs met. Like, let's actually look at what's best for everybody. No, that's crazy, guys. You guys are in a cult. You're weird. That's crazy.
Yeah,
it's you pray 5 times a day. You face this direction, and then you don't drink these things at this time, and you're like, that's good. That's what you call good.
Right.
That sounds like someone trying to control your behavior.
Right. It's so interesting. Like the Christmas point, like you literally get coal if you're bad. Like it's literally like, here's a gift from hell. You will burn with all of this, right?
You see that? That's what you're gonna be. Okay, a fucking piece of coal. You know, I saw this post of somebody on my Facebook. I think I went to high school with him. Excuse me, I went to prep school with him. And he's like a youth pastor leader guy or whatever for the Catholic Church. And he's got a bunch of kids, and he was posting a picture of him and his daughter, and his daughter is like, I don't know what age you do this, but it's like the Catholic, I want to say confirmation. I think it's confirmation.
Yeah.
And I forget what that is exactly, but it's some,
I'm already so inspired. Just how
it's some procedural thing that you do as a Catholic. And she has like her white dress and like a little cross on, she's smiling and so forth. And I was just like, that's so fucking abusive, man. You know? And it's like and I was just thinking about it, like my daughter, she'll just go put on a cute dress if she wants to.
Yeah.
We don't need to be like, no, that's for confirmation. That's for when you dedicate your life to an illusion. Like it's just, I guess the contrast is so obvious. Let me look at the chat.
It's just for
Katie's just,
Katie's trolling in the chat. But
I'm just trollable. What can you say? Or am
everybody wants to troll Mitch. Okay. Here's what I wanted to say. This point of like, okay, meaninglessness. Literally, everybody is participating in this point of meaninglessness, right? And it is, Katie says she's not trolling, by the way.
No, I know.
It is because everyone just, even if you have religion, if you have, you're searching for yourself via transgender, and I'm bringing up that point because I feel like those people who do search for themselves in that way may feel like they are at least questioning things, and so to a certain extent, it's like, I at least question things. You don't even question things. You just think you're a man, like, which, that's not exactly, obviously that's fucked up. But I'm just bringing in that point because regardless of how you think,
they're questioning the wrong things, but yeah,
right. Regardless of how you think, you're actually bringing in these things, these questions. You're considering something outside of what you're seeing in front of you. You're still just participating in the system at the end of the day.
it's blame. It's a blame. It's like society doesn't accept me.
Right. But here's what I wanted to bring in. It's like, okay, you're never actually going to have meaning in your life because you're just participating in the system the way it is. Even though you've got your thing where you're this gender or you're this,
even if society
religion,
became totally accepting of your gender,
right,
it wouldn't fucking give you that thing you're searching for.
No meaning because you're not considering what's best for all. That's it.
Okay. When you don't know when you don't understand a word, what do you do?
You're confused.
No, what do you do though? How do you rectify that? How does a person rectify when they don't understand a word?
Are you asking me how I do it or how normal?
No, how a person does. Yeah.
They just
either ignore it.
They walk away from it.
Usually ignore it.
Just
some people look it up in a dictionary.
Right. So when you're searching for the meaning of a word, you see what I mean? Like when you're searching for meaning, the reality of it is you don't fucking understand reality.
Right.
That's why you're searching for meaning, because when you were little, someone didn't give you the meaning of every word properly. And I'm not trying to be cute. Like this is the actual foundation of it. It's you are searching for meaning because at the end of the day, again, it's the same thing as searching for yourself. If you're trying to find yourself, but where are you? You're here. You're not lost. You're just not looking at yourself. You're choosing to like go in your mind into a bunch of energy and you're like, I can't find myself. I can't find myself. It's like, that's because you're here. You're not up there. You're participating in something. So where is the meaning? It's not out there. What gives something meaning or not? Like if I look at the fact that people, there's a lot of child abuse in this world, I within myself can say, well, the meaning of that is God allows it to let us have compassion, or they're creating it in their life, or it's not something I can control, or it's the work of the devil, or I can give it the meaning of, look, we have a system. It requires abuse. It requires poverty. I'm not changing that. We're all accepting and allowing it. So I'm providing the meaning.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like you can't find meaning. You have to give the meaning. You have to, because at the end of the day, it's like, for example, I had this professor in college, is really cool. And if you would ask him, like, let's say you thought you solved a problem or you're working on a problem. You're like, is this right? Like, let's say you thought you were making some progress. You're trying to check something. Like, is this right? He would just go like this. Like that. And people get so frustrated. Like, what do you mean you don't know? And they would complain about him. Like, this guy's apparently some genius mathematician. He doesn't even know. And he's like, and then he'll be like, well, let me ask you this. And he would ask you a question to get you to think more about it.
Yeah.
And his point, we talked about it one time, because I got that. It was pretty obvious why I was doing that. I wasn't like worried about it. I'm like, okay, like I'm not asking him, is it right? I would be like, what do you think about my reasoning? And I would ask him, and I would be accepting the fact that he's going to ask me a question so I could think about it more. I wasn't looking to him to give me an answer.
Yeah.
And let's just say he said, because he talked about this, he was like, let's say I tell you it's right. So does that mean it's right? Because don't you have to just trust that I know and you don't?
Yeah.
So is that you coming to the conclusion for yourself? Is that you taking responsibility for the answer? So the meaning, that's why I was saying the idea of religion being meaning for people, it's not, by definition, it is not meaning. it's just a excuse. It's a, I've stopped not stopped searching. I've I mean, at the end of the day, it's that person has chosen that that's the meaning. It's not suddenly you think, okay, because I accepted God, now he is the authority. And so I've accepted the authority. You actually are still the authority.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
'cause
still
you had to
saying
accept it.
that's the thing I need to listen
Right.
to or not.
Right.
But you're hiding behind, no, it's his authority that it's like we're talking about the alcohol point. Well, Allah says da da da.
Yeah.
But you didn't make the decision, so you still want to do it. And then you have to do it in secret. Like what you think, like your neighbors and friends don't know. Do you think fucking Allah knows? Like that's the one person you can't hide it from. It wouldn't matter if anybody else knows. But, you know, like.
Oh man,
Mitch, that
That's
interview
so
that you did with Gian is so good, right?
yeah.
And I've talked to literally like, so I've seen a few people in our community over this weekend, like a few dozen, right? and literally everyone's just like, that interview is so good. I've listened to it twice or whatever, right?
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
There's a point in there, and I would highly encourage, if you're listening to this and you haven't heard that interview yet, you have to go to Mitch's
Just go on my
or
YouTube.
whatever,
Yeah.
and go listen to that interview. It's so fucking good. But there's a point in there where Gian's explaining or describing visiting with Bernard, you know, after not seeing him for a while because his parents were like afraid or whatever. And it was so cool when he was describing like his experience with it, of like how cool it was that Bernard could just talk to his parents and bring out these points, like see these points within them. And then even going further, and how he was saying the care that he had to have in order to do that, right? To bring somebody to the point of their own fears so they could see their fears.
And he was not, in terms of being in person with him, he was not forceful within the way he would speak either. It wasn't like he's like, tell me your fears. And like, he wouldn't do that. Like there'd be like a moment where he might use an expression to like get through to somebody, but that was like rare. Like it wasn't like he had a specific way of, you know, like challenging you and deep, you know, questioning you and all this stuff. It'd be like one thing he would say. And I just wanted to say this one time, or this one story. Do you guys remember when Gian said that point about like just a touch? Like he said it a couple times. Like he would just like a word, a question, a touch, right? Yeah. There was this time when we were in South Africa, Katie and I, obviously way before we had kids. It was, you know, it's crazy. I didn't know all this, the exact history, but when he said like the farm, he invited Gian like April 2008, right? Mm-hmm. Dude, like we went in like September or something, 2008 or November, or no, it was 2009, sorry. But I started studying Destiny in August of 2008. So it's just kind of a cool point when I looked at that. So anyways, we were there November 2009, I think it was, for like about 6 months. Anyways, there was this one time where it was late at night. We were sitting outside, Katie and I, on like one of the patios, like there's chairs and stuff on the table. And I'm sitting here and she's sitting not that close to me, but like, you know, we're a little bit ways away from each other, but it's just us. And we're like arguing about something. I don't remember what it was. And I was really in this, you know what I call it? I call it Steven Crowder mode. That's what I call it. For anybody.
Were you being gay?
What? No, I wasn't being gay. Well, kind of gay, but watch that video of like Steven Crowder where he's like talking to his wife and he's just being like unnecessarily dominant and aggressive, and like it's very ego. I'm not judging the guy, like I get it. Like that was me. Like, so that kind of expression of just like, I'm being perfectly logical and you're not. And you know, it's like, it's sort of just like, no, come on. Now you're going to do this. And you know, it's like, you're not really considering the other person at all. Right. And in that interplay of dominant, submissive polarity, it's like, it's totally fucked. Right. And go listen to that interview on my podcast, on my YouTube channel, or that one from Bernard, The Will to Forgive. Right.
Yeah.
Bernard talks about these points about dominant, submissive, all that in a relationship. Anyways. So that's where we were at in our relationship. And so we were arguing, and I was really holding my point, and she was just like not talking, because that's how we would go. I was like, I would argue. So I would be talking a lot and Katie would be very quiet, right? And which is crazy because like now it's like it's like I'm describing different people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like I'm looking at how we are now. It's just like, anyways. But there was this point where it was just us, right? So I can do whatever I want because we're just me and her, right? And then here comes Bernard, and I think like Sunette or somebody's with him, right? And he just walks up. He's kind of observing the situation. He walks up behind her. And so obviously I shut up because I'm like, well, yeah, I can't, you know. And so I stopped talking, right? And he just puts his hand on her shoulder. And then she just like starts crying and like just letting all this stuff out. And I was just like, you know, and then I remember the only other thing I remember about what he said was he pointed at me and I was sitting like this. Let me see if I can do it. Hold on. Let's see if I can. I was kind of sitting like this, like kind of like, you know, like in the kind of like, you know, kind of like this in the chair, you know,
Yeah.
like that, you know, sort of kind of something like that.
Yeah. Looking cool.
That's what I remember anyways. And he goes, do you see how he's sitting? I forget the phrasing of what he said, but I'll just give you the gist of what I remember. He was like, do you see how he's sitting? Like he's manipulating you. It was something to that effect, like kind of connecting the posture to like, right. And it was just a really cool experience for me because in that moment I'm like, oh wow, I'm an asshole. Like, and like he could just support by just going and putting his hand on her shoulder.
Yeah.
You know? And like I could be more gentle. And so it's not about that I would want to copy that because it's not genuine if you're just copying it. But there have been times where I've realized with my kids, for example, where they're going through something, whatever, where I'm just like, I don't need to argue them with, I don't need to prove something. I don't need to tell them like this and this and this and this. And you need to do, it's like just for a moment, like give them a hug or, you know, put my hand on their shoulder and just be with them for a moment or whatever, you know? So it was so I just wanted to give a context for how I experienced that, what he meant by that. So nobody's like, oh, Colt, he was touching people. Okay. I see what's going like, no, like that's not what he meant at all. Right.
So I had that context because I've been to your place and you told me that story. Yeah. And so when Gian was describing this, and he even says like, you know, like Bernard put his hand on his mother's shoulder and, you know, she like was like very vulnerable in that moment, just sharing, you know, about what's going on. Right. Or crying maybe. But when I was hearing him express this, it reminded me of when I was a child. And when I grew up super religious, right? My mom took me to all the fucking churches, all of them. Like you name it, I was there. Baptist, Lutheran, you know, Southern Baptist, Catholic, Episcopal, all of them, non-denomination, all of them, right? And so I got really well versed in a lot of the we would go to church not just on fucking Sundays. We would go to church on Saturdays because it was in Spanish on Saturdays. We'd go to church on Wednesdays because they'd have these little fucking groups of people doing Bible study and all this shit. It was very fucking annoying as a child, right?
I've been there. I know what you mean. Yeah.
But I got well versed in a lot of the Bible stories, especially around Jesus, right? And you know, I could share these stories with other people and they'd be like, wow, you're really good. You should be a preacher or a pastor or something, you know, like, and it was funny because the way I saw myself was, I don't want to be a preacher or a pastor. Like, I want to be Jesus. Like, that's what I want to be. Right. Oh, Katie says, me too, Drake, except my parents just sent me by myself.
It's true. They did.
Fucking that shit.
Have you ever been to an evangelical church?
Which ones are those?
Where they're just kind of like charismatic. Charismatic is what I meant. Charismatic is what I meant.
Okay.
No, that's a Catholic term. I think it's even either way. It's like where they're like doing all the crazy shit. Like,
yeah, definitely.
People running up and down the hall and the thing.
Okay. Have you ever seen that in a black church? Like all black congregation, and they're doing that. It's just running up and down. The music is insane, dude. Who's the pianist that you showed me? Henry Corey?
Yeah, I think that's his name.
That's his name, right? Man.
Guys, what just happened to Mitch?
Wow.
Gender swapping is real.
Wow. It's really cool with the background, actually.
Okay, if you guys thought Mitch looked good with the black on black, Jess looks really good.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
You guys, it looks like you guys are doing a photo shoot.
You guys are like a model family.
Beautiful. But
You got to get a little black onesie for. Well, I don't know if they make onesies in his size.
Right.
I can't hear you, Jess.
All right. Yeah.
You're muted.
Jess, you're muted. Yeah.
Mitch, you're muted.
Yeah.
They do make 2-year-old onesies.
Oh, okay.
Really?
They do.
Well, that's
But they're
what
more
we're
just
gonna
like footy. They're like footsie
Like
pajamas.
footy pajamas, yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's footy, not footsie.
Oh.
need.
Footsy's a different thing, Jess.
Don't want to draw that crowd.
I know we're the Democrats and all you guys, you're like, oh, I like that, but we're not about that. Okay.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
Hey,
But
Drake,
yeah.
you were touching on that point of like, you felt like you wanted to be Jesus.
Yeah. Let me just wrap that point up real quick.
Yeah.
So it was interesting because as Gian was describing this, like the point within me of wanting to be Jesus was wanting to heal people, wanting to walk through the crowd and be like, this is what I'm here to do. Like to, do good in the world. Like I am that point that's what I saw as a child. Is just like, I want to preach the gospel, but it wasn't like, I want to just, say everybody believe in God or whatever. It was like, I want to go and fix those things. Like people are blind. I want to fix blind people. I want to heal people. I want people to be better. I want to change this world so everybody can live like healed or like actually be instead of being in this state of trauma or the state of just being less than. I want to bring everybody to equality. That's the way I thought of it as a child. Right. And I didn't use those exact words, but that's how I felt. Right. And
You
so
actually understood the point of it better than any adult.
Right.
Like that was around you.
Right. That's what I wanted to do as a child. And so it was really interesting as Gian was describing Bernard. I was like, oh, the point that Gian was saying, like how he was excited about that's what I was feeling, because I was like, I could actually be that. That's what I wanted to be. And here's somebody who's walked his process to actually become that. Like, what could be more fucking exciting than that? Where you've walked your process enough. And here's the big piece here. It's like, you see into yourself, you know yourself. You're not searching for yourself. You can see into yourself so well. You have that intimacy, into me, I see, right? So well that you can see into others. And you can pull those points out and you can support them with, hey, do you see that you're doing this? And support them to walk their process. And it's actually really supportive, and the amount of care that you would need to do that. And then just hearing the appreciation that Gian was sharing of that point. And obviously the people that knew Bernard were also impacted by that as well. You know, he's going to, like you said, that Muslim car dealership. And the guy's like, oh yeah, Bernard sent you over here? Yeah, you got the job. I love Bernard. Like, of course.
You know, I was thinking like that point about how in there, Jesus said, like, pull out the beam from your eye before you point out the
pull out the speck in your neighbor's eye. Exactly.
Yeah. But everybody goes, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't judge people. He's like, no, you should pull the beam out of your eye. Yeah. And that's what Bernard was saying. You should forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Not just don't judge people. Like the judging should indicate, yes, you're not really looking at yourself. But what religion teaches you really is just be a good person by not judging.
Right.
It's like, no, actually perfect yourself. Actually remove those points.
It's really clear that religion and basically all of the rules that we have in society are just low vocabulary understandings of like why you would do these things. It's like people forgot why, and it's just like we just keep doing the ritual, whether it's religion or just societal rules or whatever. It's just like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. Why? Because you should. I don't know.
Because God or Santa or somebody. I don't know. What's someone who's watching his Big
Someone
Brother? I don't know.
There's somebody there with a beard.
With the beard who gives you things if you're good. Yeah, you're not narrowing it down, guy. Like,
what were you gonna say, Jess?
Hey, Jess, how's it going?
Great. Super, super great.
The background is even less obvious now. I think it's because you have black hair. That's why.
It
Well,
is.
dark hair, anyways.
Yeah, it's like the definition of brunette. It's a super dark brown. So it was funny. You said you brought up that point of like you felt like you wanted to be Jesus, and I had a very similar phenomena growing up of just feeling like I needed to be almost like their savior, but not fully their savior, right? Because I also grew up in a Christian home. So it was like I was being programmed with like, Jesus is your savior and all those points. But then what the really fascinating point is, my mom one day when I was an early adolescent, like probably 13 or something, 14, she said this remark to me after she like found my phone unlocked somewhere and found these messages. And she's like, oh, it was like she was like a breath of fresh air. She was like, you know, this whole time I thought you might be the second coming, but I found these messages and now I okay. You're not, essentially. I'm like,
What?
what? And
How much of that was she serious? Huh?
I don't think she was serious about any of it. It was
Damn.
it was more that she saw her pattern she participated in when she was that age. And she thought I wasn't participating in any of them.
Yeah.
And like, I was
like,
just
I thought you were perfect, but actually
yeah,
you're just like,
yeah. But so she didn't mean it directly.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah.
I was actually impulse with I was the second coming. Often.
My parents told me I was like, I think it was like third or fourth. I forget, but
okay. So
but
after me.
but even just the fact that, she said that, and also like impulsed quite frequently with like, oh, you always find the person in the crowd who needs the most support. You always, the ones that don't always fit in, you always go and you comfort them. And those are the first people you talk to. And just like constant like barrage of like projecting that I'm this perfect person. Yeah. And it definitely affected me because I can see how I had no idea how to support myself. Yet I was programmed that I need to support other people. And so it was like this paradigm of like constant, like thinking about how to support other people, and never thinking about myself and really what I needed. And so that, accumulated a lot of consequence in my life. Like when I was in college, I had barely enough money to be paying for my rent and my money or my dwelling. I lived in an apartment, and still I would find people who had nothing in their fridge, like other college people, and I would take them to the grocery store in my old 98 fucking, I don't even remember what kind of vehicle it was, but just crappy car. And I budget, and they'd get a shit ton of ramen and like frozen pizzas and all this stuff, everything they can within that. And then they'd have food, and I just would feel like, oh, yes, I did my part. Like they are fed. We're good. But the reason why I could do that was because I worked at a pizza place and I worked in produce at a co-op. So I got all the free produce and I got all the free pizza. So even if I didn't have money for myself, I still would be fed. And so it was like, it's fine. I'm just going to give my food money to other people because they need it more than I do, because I actually have money. And it's funny because we, like the same analogy you brought up, the plank in your own eye. It's like, I was so unstable. I had so many issues going on, and I was suppressing all of them. And then how I would make myself like justify the suppression was through the act of helping others. But in reality, how much are you really helping other people when
Right.
all you're doing is just buying them groceries one week, or, you know, giving them a ride to this one guy needed a ride to the airport from Rochester, Minnesota to Minneapolis, Minnesota is like an hour and a half to the airport roughly. And I don't even know this person. I don't know them, but I just happen to have them, I think, on my Snapchat because I was an athlete in college and they were as well. And they posted on their story something like, anyone able to give me a ride? I not only gave them a ride once, but I did it multiple fucking times. It's like I literally skipped class for it, and I didn't even know this person, but they were just a fellow athlete. I'm like, oh yeah, I got you. Drive fucking an hour and a half one way to get them to the airport just because they needed it. Like there were shuttles that could have taken him. He could have figured it out. But no, I had to be the savior. And it's like this savior complex that you get where it's like, if there's a problem and I can do something about it, I have to go solve it. And everyone's stuck in, you're so limited in your mindset around being a savior. You don't understand that in reality, the best way to be a savior is to first save yourself and then look at the greater systems in place in the world that would actually make a difference in those actual real situations. But people think because it's a need right here, right now, I have to go solve it. And it's like a false savior, but it's also like a dopamine hit.
Right.
And
Yeah.
It's like an addiction. It's like
because
the more
it's an
I
emotion.
can,
Because it's an emotional dysfunction. That personality would actually fight creating a world that's best for all because there'd be no one for them to save.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even a conscious thing. It's just like that psychological need wouldn't get met. So
right.
by programming your child to do that, it's actually abusive.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
Also by programming your child to not care about other people is abusive too. So it's not about like, oh, you just have to not care. It's about supporting your child, educating your child to understand you got to stand up, you got to change the system. We have to create a world that's best where like you should have enough food and so should they. Because you going without and giving to them doesn't solve your problem. And you just keeping some and them going without, like there's no problem solved. It's just a fucking like polarity point.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at people's comments in here.
It
Jonathan
seems
said
like,
he believed he was Quetzalcoatl and Jesus at the
I
same
don't even know
time.
what that is.
Or is that? I think that's like the Aztec god.
Oh, really? I'm like, is that a frog? Is that a salamander?
I mean, think about how it's like impulse, like that symbolism of being the savior, of even the idea that there could be a savior.
Yeah.
You know, and like going back to the point with Bernard, he's like the last person where you can say, okay, this person was like, it's like he didn't present himself as a savior. But now it's like we don't need an individual to be the leader of something. You just need individuals who are like, I realize my responsibility to all, and I'm directing myself within principles that are best. So within that, see and think about it. If you feel like you need a leader, you would prevent the world from being best because then there can't be leaders.
Yeah.
Whether you want to be the leader or you want leaders.
Yeah.
Then what have we seen with politics? Like I was talking with Avery about this the other day, because there's an audio where Bernard makes this comment of like, it was like from 2009. And he was like, well, you know, people will talk about, you know, women are oppressed and men run the world and everything. He's like, maybe we'll have women run the world. Let's try that and see how that goes. And that's what's happened since that point is like, now it's become women. And now look, it's fucking worse. And it's not because I'm saying women are worse than men. We should go back to men. It's the problem of being leaders. And when women are leaders, it's not what you want. It just proves the point of it's not better if you have women leaders. It wasn't men are the problem. It's having leaders is the fucking problem.
It's funny because when men held the point, women were doing their best to become a man. And now that women are holding the point, men are doing their best to become a woman.
And they're so much
at
better
the end
at
of
it.
the day, everyone's just craving that power of like, I'm the leader. But that's the same exact pattern of I'm the savior.
Isn't it funny though? The places where men are better than women at being women is all the places where the women are trying to be men. Like, not that women shouldn't be in sports. It's just, it's a masculine type of activity, being in a sport.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why there's a separation between men and women competitive sports, because men are going to dominate that, generally speaking.
Right.
But then the men go into the women's and they just show like, you can't fucking compete with us in this arena.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then even within politics, you have to control the conversation so that nobody can challenge anything for the women to dominate there. Same thing within nations. You have to control you can't have any type of competition. It's suppressed by going, oh, you're being sexist, you're being rude, you're being this, you're not caring about the person. So that's how the women get the competitive advantage within those systems. But then you create a point where it's like everything is totally fucked.
Oh, someone was flirting with me. They looked at me the wrong way.
It's like, well, you were wearing high heels and lipstick. I'm just expressing myself. That's for me. It's like, okay. I mean, you're in a high testosterone environment. What do you expect?
Yeah. Cam, you asked me to remind you of this point. And it was the weak men, hard times point, right?
Yeah. And it kind of ties into everything we were talking about, which was just the point of, okay, you guys know that saying of like, how does it go? It's like strong men create good times.
Good times create soft men.
Good times create soft men or weak men. And then
create hard times.
Weak men create hard times. Okay. But isn't it the hard times creates the strong men?
Yeah.
Okay. And then they create the good times, and that creates the soft men, which creates the hard times, but that creates the strong men, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's always looking at that. And it's like, when you see that, what is the thing that goes through the average person's mind?
There must be a cycle.
It'll resolve itself.
But what's the solution in their mind?
It's just
ride the cycle.
Yeah, I'll be a strong man then. And then
that's what we need. We just need strong men again.
Yeah.
It's because we have weak men and we need strong men, and strong men will, but what does that create?
Good times.
Good times.
And then what does that create?
Weak men.
So is the solution we need strong men?
Why don't we just need stable men who are taking on their role in the masculine and stable women taking on their role in the feminine?
See, but what is missing from all of it?
Education.
Because is strength in itself the solution?
No.
It's principles. That's the point that's missed, because if you're principled, you will create a stable environment that is best, that also continues to grow and evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we're doing right now is not evolution. It's positivity, negativity, positivity. It's like you said, a cycle.
Yeah.
So the strong men, it's not that men should not be strong. That's not what I'm saying. But people putting right now, you have the whole conservative versus liberal thing going on, this dichotomy, this polarity. And it's like strong men. We don't need these weak, sissy transgender men. We need the strong masculine men. It's like, but those guys just want to drink beer and watch football, or, like they created this. It's like the people saying like, I got spanked, my parents spanked me and spanking's just fine.
Turn out that bad.
And it's like, or also when they go, oh, it's because of all these participation trophies and all this stuff. And it's like, but who was putting their kids in the participation trophy sports?
Right.
And at some point, can't you trace it back to a strong generation?
Right.
So if you're saying it's the participation trophies, well, is it the kids' fault?
Yeah.
It's the parents' fault. And so if it's not the kids' fault, it's the parents' fault. So it's not that parents' fault, it's their parents' fault. So how did we go from strong men to allowing all this bullshit? Where did the strong men go? Why did they become weak? And it's So the point is this, it's not about strong versus weak. It's about stability within your principles. Because I was talking with someone recently, and they were saying how they saw within themselves, and I've experienced this too, the tendency that when you go to another point or things change, you've created something, you tend to want to go soft. And so it's not that the softness is bad. It's just that it's about you stop considering things from principle. And so the challenge then is, okay, when you're strong, you're going to create something that's cool. That's going to create comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are you going to wait for the reaction of not directing yourself that's going to create a challenge that you have to react to? Or are you going to look within principles and say, I'm not going to remain comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm going to be comfortable with where I'm at and what I have, but now I'm going to stretch myself and go to the next point. That's why we're always talking about expanding. Then we'll go into politics. Then we'll go into all this other points. It's about having that vision.
Isn't that so interesting though, Cameron? The way you described it, either way, there will be struggle.
Right. There will be challenge. It will be hard sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever you want to phrase it. But in short,
well, they say struggle, it's good because the communists will love that. They love struggle. So we'll get them on board too.
But it's like one way.
Somebody else likes struggle too.
If you're allowing the consequence to accumulate and there to be a problem in the first place, you're less in direct control over that and like the amount of struggle there is. It's like it could be really fucking bad. Like what if I just thought of Robin Lee. I was like, what if you lived in a home along the coast and you didn't hurricane proof your home and you waited till after the hurricane to do it instead of doing it before the hurricane? It's like either way, it's going to be a lot of work to hurricane proof your house. But if you wait till after, it's going to be way worse because there's unpredictables going on that force you to have to do it. And so if you can first just force yourself to do it, yeah, sure, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be new. You're going to have to build something, whatever it is. But it's so much easier than waiting for the consequence to accumulate and then having to deal with all those factors. And at that point, you still have to face the point anyways. So it's like you're facing all the consequence and the point. So why not just force yourself to face the point in the first place? It's like people aren't willing to be uncomfortable until they're forced to be uncomfortable. And what it
really is, just is, let me just tweak the point because it's not about the hurricane proofing. That's what you should do. Mm-hmm. And afterwards, if you have the consequence, you should hurricane proof it. But what happens, and I know it's an analogy, in the analogy of the world is they just rebuild the house. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? Like we have an economic crash and instead of actually shifting and being like, how do we make this hurricane proof? How do we make this actually stable? We go, oh, let's just build again. And they just rebuild. So that's the strong men. They didn't change their starting point. They're like, oh, guys, we need some strong men out here to rebuild the house. Because obviously the weak men are not going to be able to rebuild it. Because the weak men were just sitting in watching their football. It's not different men.
Yeah.
The men go weak on the weekend.
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? Like you go to work, you're strong, you're a man, you do all that. But then on the weekend, what do? You fuck off. You play football and you barbecue.
Or after work.
It's not in itself bad to have community and to relax and all this stuff. But what are you doing during the week when you're strong? You're just participating in rebuilding the system over and over and over, not changing it. And so the hurricane's going to come. You know, and you might as well at this point, if you have to work during the week, use your weekend instead of fucking relaxing from that to do the hurricane proofing, to actually look at how can I change, you know what I mean? But the point is, as a society, we're just like, no, just keep things as it is. And that's why the entertainment system is so fucking insidious. Yes. And why we've been very specific about how much we expose our children to different forms of entertainment in this world, because they're designed to impulse you with, just relax. It's all fine. Get distracted. Like, why are movies and stuff so dramatic?
Yeah.
It's like versus look at what we talk about with relationships, right? Like maybe you could talk a little bit about that, Jess, of like, now that you have Aristotle and like how the average woman would be in their relationship in her mind, having a kid, having a husband, and versus how much you've had to shift that within yourself. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you couldn't be that and then continue to grow. Because what are you going to end up doing is just hold the man back.
Oh, for sure. Because the average woman who has a child is totally at effect of that child in not a supportive way, in that they see themselves as a victim of like, this child is taking away this part of me. I no longer can go out with my friends as often as I want. I no longer can have the same kind of schedule to keep the house that I want. I like all these different points, and they're like, and it's because of this child. They blame that child, and they go into this turmoil where it's like they get exhausted from supporting their child, and then they're like, you have to support me. You have to make me feel better because I'm the one taking this responsibility. So you have to make me, so your responsibility is to make me feel better and to tell me I'm a boss mom and or whatever, you know? And it's like in that it is an endless cycle of abuse for everyone involved, because on a very deep level, you're telling that child that your existence is a nuisance, that I would rather you be quiet and don't engage with me so I can get my things done. And we see that all the time. That program plays out for so many people. Like,
and it's like, it's just for a few years.
Yeah. And it's like
but they will go and give up everything of their life to go work at a fucking corporation.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Makes
and
zero
40
fucking
years.
sense.
Yeah.
And, okay. And that's such a crazy point. That's been
hold on. Did you see that
programmed.
Patrick Bet David interview where I forget what they were talking about, but he said I forget what the conversation was about, but he talked to this woman who was like 30-ish, and she was like in that moment, she was like, I'm realizing now that I spent my whole life competing with men. I've made a lot of money. I've done business. Like I've been very good at it, and I've outcompeted a lot of men. And she's like, and now I realized I don't want to compete with men. I want to marry one. You know, so it's like you can get sucked into it, and the whole time, all the environment is impulsing you. No, this is good. So it's like the idea, okay, like it doesn't always feel good being a mom. It's challenging, it's tiring, it's exhausting. Yeah. It's all those points you also brought up, right? But isn't it exactly the same if you're going to work every day? The difference is you have the quote media society going, it's fine, keep going, it's fine. Even though you don't feel physically, fundamentally any different in either situation, you have the environment impulsing you that this is okay.
Yeah.
Versus the other one, everyone's going like, really, you're a slave at home? So you get all the thoughts coming up of like, oh, why am I this slave? But why don't you have the same fucking thoughts when you're going to work every day?
Totally.
You know, and I want to add this point too. I saw this post on the self-perfected singles thread, and I'm not saying this to call anybody out, but I saw someone post on there and they were like, I'm a single mom. I'm 27 or something like that. I've got a young kid, right? And like, you know, there's already somebody out there that you could be with. It's the person that you had sex with to make your children. Why don't you just go be with them? And hopefully that person sees it. Here's what I'm saying, because I know I'll get all kinds of excuses. But what you're looking for is somebody with principles, yeah? That's why you're posting in there. And it's cool. I mean, it's cool that they're posting in there, but I was really looking at the point of like, here's the problem for that person. What fucking man who is a strong, like, I'm just telling you, a man who has the qualities that you want is not going to, that type of man is not going to want to raise children that are not his own. Unfortunately for you, it sucks. So that's why I'm saying, go get your fucking ex-husband, boyfriend, one night stand, whatever, go fucking get them into self-perfected. Like, and maybe that won't work, but maybe you're fucked, because it's like, I see so many women now coming into the group, or just generally, where it's like, they're single moms. And then when we talk about all the points of what you should do, they're like, it's too hard to do that as a single mom. Like, that's what we've been saying. Like, and it's not about them individually, because yes, they got fucked by society and everything, themselves, everything. They didn't have the private education, but it's like, if anything, they should be like, okay, guys, I'm going to make it my point to just be a warning to everybody else of like, wake up, don't fucking do this. Don't buy into this bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
There's a big point though of not only are women a victim to their child, but society has deeply programmed women to feel as though they are a victim to their partner, where no matter what, there's something that the partner is doing that is abusing them.
And you know what? There probably is, but they don't look at it as a two-way street at all.
Yeah,
They're like,
because
I'm the perfect, like compassion, like that program you were saying your mom put into you.
Yeah.
They see themselves that way. Like, I don't know, I'm the compassionate savior and my husband's just a narcissist. And it's like,
Right.
he probably is a narcissist, but you are too. What are you fucking talking about?
But the problem is that everything that they're considering abuse from their partner, almost always, they are participating in the same pattern. So say a husband is verbally abusive and a wife only has verbally abusive thoughts, but they don't say it. You're still accepting and allowing that pattern within yourself.
But even just participating in the pattern of being submissive. Submissive doesn't mean doing the dishes. Submissive means not standing as who you are. And like you said, saying the fucking and standing up and being clear. Instead, it's a reactionary point.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's hard to explain that to a person who is not a dominant person, but it's like the dominant person is only dominant to the submissive person.
Yeah.
So the point about that is if the woman who's having these problems with this man thinks they're just going to get rid of him and go find somebody better, guess what? That better person is not going to be with you because you're not going to support effectively.
Yeah.
You have to change that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so trying to find somebody who you think is better and is not a narcissist and not a this and a that isn't going to change anything because you're not looking within yourself as like, who do I need to be? And if you're saying, well, that person, they can't change. Well, then what are you saying about yourself?
It's interesting, like, because all these women got impulsed with a certain imagery to be a boss bitch or whatever.
And the men are fucking programmed to not settle down and all that. It's their fault too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, that's the point I was going to make is
Okay,
that
sorry.
I was just listening to a podcast where they were saying like all these guys who, we're told to look up to are like out there, fucking all these women or whatever. And it's like, wait, you can't just stay committed to your wife? Like, what kind of a quote unquote strong man is this? Because what ends up happening is, oh,
dude,
man.
when I have a really good meal, I just want to have that meal every night. I mean, I'm okay if my wife makes different meals and so forth, but like as a man, I can speak as a man.
Yeah.
We don't need variety.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I'll just be like, hey, that was a really great sandwich. I'm just gonna eat that every fucking day for lunch.
It's so
like,
interesting.
I don't need a different one.
Because I eat chicken like every day. Every day. Like Christine's like, I'm tired of chicken. I'm like, I'm not. Like, make that
right.
chicken.
Exactly. It's like
Mitchell's the same way.
Yeah.
It's a masculine thing.
Yeah. But it's funny because what we're told is, oh, you got to be this kind of a man. He's like, attacking all the women, flirting with all the women or whatever. And
wait, attacking? What is that?
and the guys who are on this podcast are saying like, what ends up happening then is then in that guy's home, the woman leads him, right? In a tyrannical way, right? Because then they're like, wait, like they were actually making the point with Robert F. Kennedy, and how like he's like, oh, I stand for medical freedom, and at the same time he's like, if you want to come to a party in my house, everybody has to be vaccinated. And like, and they're like, why?
Is that true?
And he's like, oh, because my wife. It's my wife. Like, wait, why?
That's the point that I do understand it, but I can no longer relate to.
Yeah.
Where it's like, how can you be that diametrically opposed to your partner?
Yeah.
And it's not about the man determines what the woman says. Like they should both come into agreement.
Right.
Like how can you
Right.
how can it be he's the champion of like not vaccines and then she's like you have to have like how do they ever talk about anything?
There's a lot of women in this group that we've seen walk through this point where they see the common sense of this process and they take it on, and their husband is delayed in him beginning and starting and seeing the value of this process.
Sure.
And I have now realized where that pattern comes from after having Aristotle, because it's like this strong sense of needing to nurture the children. And if you see that something will create a nurturing environment for them to thrive, it's like that, not like you will do everything you can to get that. And other women have misconstrued that and not based that drive on principles. And so they're just like, I see my husband not being the masculine that he needs to be.
So they'll compromise. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're like,
it's like, okay, just provide. I'll take it's, but that's the control point that we always talk about. They just go into control mode where it's like, and you won't challenge them to be like, no, don't fucking. That's what was cool hearing about Gracie, because she's like, look, it's tough, but go out and do it, and then let's go beyond where we're at. She's not like wanting to stay in the comfort zone.
Right. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And so you just see that quite often with women, where it either leads to them controlling their partner and them kind of being the dominant, quote unquote, dominant one in the relationship, where they're being more masculine, they're leading like all these different points.
Or they'll dominate by complaining and nagging. Belittling.
Yes.
And the only reason why that could happen is if the man himself is being weak. And in this instance, in this context, what I'm saying is like weak may be that you think you have to sleep with all these fucking women or watch porn or whatever it is, like whatever it is that you want to indulge in. And it's like I won't be able to do that if I challenge her on this, then she'll take that away from me. It's like you're being weak.
She'll take my Star Wars.
Yeah. Right.
If you're a man and you're still watching Star Wars and you got action figures, you ain't a man.
Action figures. Oh.
Yeah.
It's just a little boy.
Honestly, my 6-year-old doesn't even play with action figures.
Yeah. And but then that's also, if you're participating in that pattern, that's what makes you leave your partner. That's what makes you say, oh, he's lost. I'm just going to leave, because you think that is how you can create the environment you need for your children. But in reality, you're denying the fact that your children are half your partner. And you're just showing that you're not willing to change and projecting it onto your partner. Because if you were actually willing to change and you were changing and taking this process on, your partner would see that. And your partner would be the one asking questions and or gradually getting exposed to this, to be curious, like, how are you changing so much? And they would come to the fork in the road themselves without you forcing the fork in the road and saying, you just don't see it, so I gotta go, I gotta leave. And it's going to be,
and that's what I'm trying to say. That attitude, that point is going to prevent that woman from ever finding the man that's going to actually support her in the best way.
But we really need to realize, like, anyone who's experienced that, like, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for you to be honest with yourself, but that's what it really requires. Because it's like you're in this position where you've created so much external consequence because you haven't dealt with your internal consequence, that you now have to deal with external factors to walk this back. Maybe you've moved states. Maybe you've moved houses. maybe you've divorced or whatever, where you've created these physical things in reaction to you not willing to be honest with yourself. And you may have cut ties with friends, cut ties with their family, like all these points where it's like you've created all this consequence now because you've gone down this road of blaming and not taking responsibility. And it may be hard to walk back some of those points, and you may have to admit that you were wrong, but it's so worth it because you have children. And if you don't do that, then your children are downloading that it's okay to blame and not take responsibility.
Yeah. And half of me is fucked.
Right. If you walk through this process and it's not going to look pretty, and you may fuck up along the way, and you may say the wrong things in the process of walking these points back, and you may be embarrassed, you like all these points. And you're like, but I don't want to show my kids I'm weak. They will see that you're willing to get uncomfortable to do what is best. And that is the most important thing that you could possibly do at this point, now that you've accumulated all this consequence. And that's why I say it may be hard. It may be hard because you're literally having to show your kids a side of yourself that you haven't even shown yourself. It's that vulnerability point we talked about earlier, where you have to be willing not only to be vulnerable with yourself, but you have to be willing to be vulnerable in front of your children, where you're going through this process, doing new things, where you may be exposed. And that's okay.
Hold on. That doesn't mean you got to be like sharing all your shit with them.
Right.
No.
It just means like, don't be like, well, I have kids, so I can't do this because I have to just be strong for them. And it's like, no, you do have to be clear and not fucking complain to them and share all that bullshit.
Yes.
But I like what you're saying, because it's like, but if you don't, and another part of it, just to be clear, like if there's these young guys in the group, or even somewhat older guys, like if they really want to stand up and push themselves, I'm going to suggest to them, you don't fucking go be with a woman who already has kids.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I'm not trying to make people's lives difficult. It's just, I know they're not going to be able to push as much. They're going to regret it. It's going to make it really fucking hard. So for those women who already have, it's like, if you can change, they can change. Maybe some, and there may be some where it's not possible. And you'll have to see that for yourself. Like I'm not guaranteeing anybody anything. It's just, what other alternative is there? What will be best for the kids? Is for the father to change and for the mother and the father to get back together and be like, this is how you resolve conflict. Because whatever the problem is, it's just fucking emotional. And we have the tools to change it. Whatever the problem is, you have the tools to change it. Look, if you got raped by a fucking serial killer pedophile, okay, then do not get back with that person. That is not what I am saying. Okay. And I know it's funny. I'm not trying to make light of it. I'm just saying, like, I'm serious. Like if the person is like, they fly into a drunken rage every night and start literally beating you. Okay, fine. I understand that. But that's like 0.1% of the case. You know what I mean? So what people are like, oh, he was domestic violence. It's like, really, they just got they blew up because the woman kept like nagging him or something. Yeah. Right. Like, or they're drinking or whatever. Like, I get it. It's tough. I understand. That's why we say don't drink, don't do drugs, stop all that shit. Right. So obviously don't put yourself in an actual physical harmful situation, you or your kids, but be self-honest about it. Don't say it's that, because when you look at the definition of harm now, they're saying harmful to a child if you don't affirm the gender they believe they are. They call that harm. Right. So and then I hear women using these words, and it's like, okay, so he was abusive. Define what you mean by abusive, because some people would define abusive as I let my child think that they're a boy when they're actually a girl, and it's abusive if I challenge that. Yeah. So what are we really talking about here as actual abuse? Right? Because I would define abuse as you tell your child that there's a God who's going to save them if they're good. So I have a different definition of abuse. I mean, I also define abuse as you like beating somebody, obviously.
I also defined abuse as you put your kid in a daycare instead of actually being there and being with your child.
Dude, that shit that who was talking about it?
Melissa.
Melissa was talking about like in those daycares, right? And you were talking, I guess you're talking about with Mitch on the podcast.
Yeah,
that you guys did.
yeah.
That point about like you're not allowed to pick up and hold the, like you can change their diaper, you can give them food, baby bottle or whatever, but you're not allowed to just like walk around and cuddle them and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that is like fucked, man.
It is. But
So you're the mother and you're like, well, I'll give it to somebody else. They'll take care of it. And you're like, they're not taking care of it. And then you wonder why all these kids are like emotionally fucking deprived and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And dude, I'm getting so many ads. You know, you click on something and you get more of that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting all these ads now for, it's like some kid who's like very tearful looking or whatever. And it's like, mom or dad, like, you know, your child has all this anxiety and so forth. And it's some testimonial of some product or something. And the parents like, they were having trouble in school and they were having so much anxiety and so forth. And now their behavior at school is good and this and that. And I'm like, fuck, man.
Yeah.
Like you didn't even think to take them out of school and actually raise them and educate them yourself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's pretty fucked up.
But people haven't made that differentiation.
Imagine you bought a pet bunny rabbit and then you got it, you kissed it, cuddled it. And then day one, you send it off to some like bunny rabbit boarding school and they just live there for the rest of their life. And they come and visit you on the weekend. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But people are like, they haven't seen or realized that when you put your kid in school and when you put your kid in daycare, that somebody else is raising your child.
And they're not even raising them. They're not even like doing the thing you're not doing.
Right.
It's just somebody else neglecting them.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so it's like, they don't understand that having them for only a couple hours in the morning and in the evening, and then them going to bed is not enough time to influence them at all.
But just think about what the average person feels about themselves. The average person feels that I'm just a slave. I go to work. I survive. I entertain myself to numb the pain of that. So why the fuck wouldn't they treat their kids? It's like, why do I need to really consider supporting you to develop in a way where you're going beyond mere survival and into actual like being best? Why would I do that? Because you don't need to do that. You're just going to do what I do and just survive in the system. So as long as I hit that, and in fact, it's like with our kids, they challenge everything. And they're not confrontational per se. It's just they're not what people would call disrespectful. They ask questions. They want to know why. Like I went outside the other day. I'll show you guys this picture. Last night, right? I was working on something. I come outside. Okay, here's the back tire on the tractor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, just like a normal tire tractor. Okay. Here's the front tire.
Okay.
What do you notice different?
It's
Small.
colored.
All right. You see all the paint dripping?
Yes.
You can't tell, but the bolts on the inside are like red or orange, right?
Yeah.
Versus right. And it's with the glare, you can't see the difference, but like that center circle is black. The bolts are silver on the center. And Max had taken like the can of spray paint that matches the color of the tractor, and he had painted the wheels on the front tires, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, I wanted to make your tractor look nice, right? And I was just laughing. Like, I was like, cool. I was like, in the future, I said, if you want to paint something that's not like a paint, you know, if it's something like a tool or something, just come talk to me, right? I wasn't mad at him. I wasn't mad. I'm like, whatever. You know what I mean? But most parents would think that's like,
They vandalized my tractor. How dare you? You need to stop.
it's like,
Don't
even if
ever
you
touch the spray paint again.
It's like, okay, I'll sand it, refinish it, paint it, whatever we need to do. Like, and then we'll talk about, I'm not just like, sure, go ahead, keep spray painting. I told him, I said, look, generally don't paint on tools. Come talk to me first. Because like with the tractor, I said, who knows, we might want to sell that tractor at some point, you know, and get another tractor. I don't know, maybe probably not. I said, it's going to last forever. But I said, but you know, something people value about those Kubota tractors is they have the original paint and all this stuff. And I said, I don't care, Max. Like, but also I don't know if it's going to affect the bolts if I need to get them off if there's paint on them. Maybe it won't, probably not if I have a torque wrench. I don't know. I said, but in the future, I said, just, I know you're having fun and playing, right? But just come talk to me like about what you want to paint. If it's something and I realize he's going to still make a mistake because he's not going to have the context to know how to evaluate, is this the thing I should ask Cameron about or not?
Right.
So he's going to learn that through the feedback I'm giving him of like, hey, this is one of those things that I would prefer that you would have asked me. But if I'm like, nope, you're bad, it's like, then suddenly he's going to feel bad, like guilty and all that. Like, that's not necessary. Right. So what I'm saying is my kid still challenged the point, but like, think about it. He's 6 years old and he can go use some spray paint. And yeah, he spray painted the quote wrong thing, whatever, but he's not hurt. He didn't hurt himself.
Yeah.
It's
like when you're 6 years old, aren't you normally like learning to like cut with like safety scissors? You know what I mean? And like, he's doing stuff way beyond that because we're taking responsibility. Go ahead, Trent.
It's crazy because it's literally the same point in these relationships with these women where their partner is just trying to figure it out and they're just trying to figure it out. But instead of just saying, hey, that wasn't an effective way to support me, maybe try this in the future. They're just saying,
you hurt me.
Dare you? You upset me. This is your fault. I'm feeling this way because of you.
Hey, check this out. Same kid. Let's get it to focus.
I could just hold it still for a moment.
I know it's gonna take a second. Let me try to. Come on, webcam. It will never focus. If I go back up a little bit. Oh, you know what? Maybe if I do this. Maybe that light may be fucking around with it.
All I see is a garden and
so glary. I don't know why it's so glary. Maybe just because the light reflecting off of. It's kind of hard to see it. I know, guys. But
Can you just describe it to me?
I could have just sent it to my computer. Oh, there we go.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
Okay, I still don't know.
He's working in the garden with Katie.
No, that's the electric netting that we have around the chickens that we're moving around the pasture. Yeah. Katie's got Caius on her back. I know you can't see it.
Yeah. She's
holding like probably 30, I don't know, 15, 20 poles that have electric netting hanging down from them. And Max is pulling one up. And normally Katie and I would do that together, but I had to go put some cattle panel around the plum tree because we're moving the cattle over there. So I'm just showing you that's the same kid. And then here's another one, or just right before that. I was walking back towards the barn to get some stuff, and he was walking this way. And he was I like this picture. So he was carrying like the chicken waterers or the feeders. Yeah. Look at his pants. He's got a little toy owl and a toy bat. They're like helping him, he said. He's like carrying him around.
Yeah. Those pants remind me of like a swordsman with like a little sword and like the boots,
like some kind of medieval fucking like.
Yeah.
Okay, look, same kid. Same kid.
Just reading.
And I wish you guys could see. I'm gonna send a couple of these real quick while we're talking to my computer so I can share them because I want people to see this.
It's so fascinating just watching them and knowing that we are going to get similar results. They'll look potentially a little differently via the activities they're doing or what they're reading or whatever based on environmental influence here, right? But generally,
I mean, they'll probably say bag instead of bag.
Generally, this is replicatable. Generally, this is something that everyone can do. Your children can also be this effective, but it doesn't only require techno tutor. You guys, it requires you to face your patterns because you imprinted your patterns onto your children. And if you don't face them for yourself, you won't be able to effectively see them within your children, and you won't be able to effectively support them with those patterns. So it requires you to walk your own process. And it's a daily commitment. It's you every single day choosing, I'm walking my process and being willing to look at all these points because it's so easy to fall off, you guys. It's so easy to miss a day. It's so easy to say, oh, I'm stable enough now that I've been using this for a while. I can take a little bit of time off. But a great way to measure if you're quote unquote done with your process, is the world best?
Yeah. Does everybody have all their basic needs met? Like,
is the world
I'm
best for
actually
all?
so tired in my process. I'm like, oh, okay. So are you in the
If
future?
not, you're not done.
Okay, let me share this real quick.
Yeah, you got it. You already have the capability.
Okay.
Mm.
Hold on, let me find. So actually, this was the first one Max did, because we bought like a model airplane and like put it together one day. So then this is what he started doing the other day. He starts drawing like these diagrams of like the different parts.
Wow.
Look, he wrote all this himself. Fuselage.
Mhm.
It's a fighter plane, I guess. He's like showing where everything goes, and like he labeled all of them. Look, the propellers, F2.
Wow.
Right. And then so that was like a couple days ago. Then yesterday, I was smoking some bacon and some ham, and I was talking about, he was like, what's something that I can design for you, like that you would need some plans for? And I was like, well, I want to eventually build like a smokehouse. So then I wish I had taken pictures of all the individual ones. Look, there's the platform it sits on. Here's a door. Look at the detail. It's kind of covered up, but like, this is the top frame, side frames. There's a bottom one down here you can't see. This is like the center panel of the door. These are door hinges. This is a bolt that would go on there, like, like a latch bolt. Look, he's got side doors.
So
Here he's
cool.
drawing, I think, the roof.
That's so
I
cool.
think that's what that says. And then later that day, he while we were, I don't know what we were doing, I was doing something. He was sitting there outside. Look, that's a diagram of a chair.
Yeah.
See how it has like all the parts and
This
everything,
is
right?
like really like an engineer,
Look, here's a car.
Keith-
I love this
Keith-
one.
Keith is loving this.
Look at this one. Umbrella.
Wow.
Oh,
And look, do you notice like how we put U2, U3, the parts?
Yeah.
yeah.
Car. Oh, where'd it go? C1,
See,
right? Table, T1, T2, T3. Like, it's just like the legs of the table,
Yeah.
right? And then look, here's him. This is the book I had just got him, like literally had just gotten it in the mail.
wow.
I don't know if anyone can see that.
He's read a lot already.
Like, look at the words on that page. That's not like a
Super
6-year-old
small.
book,
Yeah.
right? And then just a bonus picture. Here's Seneca and going out to check on the beehives.
She's so cute in that. It's amazing. The little
We had-
gloves taped up.
We had to, because we didn't have gloves small enough for her. But we weren't like opening the hive, so I know those gloves are like cloth, so she could get stung there. But we were just going to put a water thing out there for them. So she was like, let's wear our bee suits, right? So even though it wasn't necessary per se, but I just want people to see that, like, this kid that I'm apparently, oh, he's so disrespectfully paints on your tractor. Like, see, that's a kid that needs discipline. It's like, your kid who you think is disciplined and wouldn't paint on your tractor wheels, like, who gives a fuck? They could be repainted, or who cares? They ain't doing any of that stuff either.
Mhm.
They're not helping with the chickens, like, because I had to go do something else. They're not doing all this other stuff. They're not reading. Like, he's read over 2,000. You saw those words on that page.
Yeah.
He's read of all the books over the past, let's say, week and a half to maybe 2 weeks maximum. He's read over 2,000 pages
Wow.
like that. Right. So this is a whole nother. So everything we're saying, we're showing you also, like, this is the result of it. This is not just us like having some opinion about parenting.
So many.
Oh, guys, look, it's 11:11.
The average person.
It is where I'm at.
The average person hasn't even read that many in the last 5 years of their life.
Yeah,
And
that's
it's been a
over
week.
that's over like 100 and some odd pages a day. Right.
You guys, the average person probably hasn't read that
Actually,
many pages in their whole
I made a mistake.
fucking life.
I made a mistake, because that one book that has 700 pages, he read it 4 times also. So I was just counting new pages.
Yeah. The
he was
average
waiting
person
for the
hasn't
4
even
through
read
6.
that in their whole lives. You guys, their entire life. I know for me and my self-honesty, in my whole life before this process, because I've read a lot more now that I've been in this process, but before this process, he's read more than I had before I started this process in one week.
That's one of the cool things about this group, is like how, like, especially early on, we were like really talking about like sci-fi books and like selling everybody on.
So crazy.
And then like I see everybody like reading all these books now and like talking about reading. Like, where else do you see that? Like,
Right.
people join book clubs. Okay.
Yeah.
And I know you guys have, I'm not dissing that, like, but I see outside stuff, right? Where it's like a book club and we're going to read a book. And that's like the only thing the person read the whole fucking month. Like in our group, it's like you join a book club. It's like, yeah, I already read the book. Cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like people are reading like fucking Asimov and, Otherland and all this shit. And it's like, we can talk about different books and exchange. Like there's no other group where it's like, we're reading again, not because you're supposed to, like, just like we're not drinking alcohol. We're not drinking it because we're not supposed to. We don't want to. We're reading because we want to read, not because, well, okay, the so-and-so said you're supposed to read or something, just like in school. You never want to, like every time I did school, it's like, I wouldn't read that book. Fuck that book. But I would read a shit ton outside of school because I was able to read.
Yeah. All I did was watch the movie if there was a movie, or read the Cliff Notes, or didn't do anything. Because I could not read. I would read a paragraph and then be like, I have no idea what I just read. If my life depended on it, I couldn't tell you even one word that I just read.
Damn.
And I then would have to go reread it again.
That's normal.
And the same thing would happen, you guys. I would read the same paragraph like 4 fucking times before I would even start to get what it was saying.
That's why it was impossible to tutor SAT if you didn't have a kid that was already really smart.
Yeah.
Meaning like they could read and stuff, because like, what's the tricks? What's the tricks to reading comprehension? Fucking read it and understand it.
Yeah.
It's like they read it and I go, okay, so can you explain what you read? It's like, let me see. And they start reading it again. I'm like, what were you doing the first time?
Right. Yeah. And also I would be just petrified, just horribly scared if we were reading a textbook in class and I would count ahead the paragraphs to make sure I knew which one, and I'd read it as many
when you'd
times.
have to read out loud.
Yeah. And I'd read it as many times as I possibly could before it got
so you're not getting any benefit from everybody else reading out loud.
No, I'm not hearing anything they're saying.
Right.
And then if I counted wrong and it was the wrong paragraph and I had to read a different paragraph, I'm literally sweating. I'm like 16, 17 years old and I'm in my seat just totally disabled. Like I can't function as a being because I can't read a single paragraph in a textbook. That's insane. That's so crazy, you guys. That should never happen.
And all this shit. And it's like, they just look up and try to figure out the easiest way to do it and get the thing done. And like, you're not learning it's like if I asked Max to describe a book, he'd just tell me about it because he read it and understood it. And so we're putting kids in school and then just going through the motions, just like people are going to work, going through the motions. They're not questioning any of that. So when we say you're neglecting and abusing your kids, people take it personally. But it's like, look at the actual fucking thing you're doing. Stop taking it personally and actually look at it.
Right. So it's so obvious. It's funny because when you were describing those points, just about like the mothers, like what I was looking at is just that point of like, as a woman, wouldn't you want to just with a single touch be able to like connect with someone, just completely connect with them?
Well, that solved the loneliness problem, wouldn't
it? Right. But like, that's not going to happen just randomly, and even if it did, that can't be relied on. It's like, here's how you can actually get there by just walking this process. It's really that simple. It's that simple. You just walk this process. And the whole point of it is to connect with all of us, but also to make sure that everyone has their needs met so they can get to that point. If you don't have your needs met, you can't even focus on anything beyond that. Right.
Imagine when you go to a party like Mitch was talking about, or a hangout, and you don't have anything actually in common fundamentally. Versus when you come to a self-perfected event, right? Which we've had many self-perfected events. We just never called them that yet.
Mhm.
right? Like every time we come to the ranch here, or we went to y'all's wedding, or
Yeah.
we went to the gin event, but it was just a big fucking self-perfected party the whole time. It just wasn't called self-perfected yet.
Yeah.
But it's the same point. It's the same tools and principles. It's just now you have a name for it. That's a new name. It's all it is. So when I say like we've been in these events before, we have.
It's
There's no loneliness.
so
There's no loneliness.
crazy.
It's like you can just talk to people. It's fun.
It's like you walk into that room, and even if you've never met any of these people in person, you already know what they stand by. You already know about like we're all sharing online about our lives. We're all like the word I made a post yesterday, and the word that kind of embodies that point is integrity. I have never really had integrity before now, because think about it. Before, I didn't even know what my principles were. I didn't even know what my purpose of my life was. None of that. And so everything I was basing it on wasn't integrated. It wasn't
You're
any,
missing things. You're missing
Yeah.
definitions. That's why people want to search for meaning, because they're missing that.
yes.
You're not
And
whole.
now everything I have fully realized these points where I'm 100% committed to this process. I'm 100% committed to creating a world that's best for all. And I'm actively walking my process on a daily basis. I am experiencing integrity where there's not like this inkling inside where you're like feeling like an imposter or feeling like, ooh, it's just like I may be doing something else in 5 years from now. You know, that feeling of like, this isn't permanent type of thing, or like I'm kind of like a fraud. Like that always was back in the back of my mind, even though I was doing all these nice things for people.
Yeah, it's
Even
because
though
you know,
I was
like,
a quote
it's not
unquote
real.
savior.
Yeah.
I still didn't have integrity. Even if my actions showed the average person I had integrity, I didn't have integrity. Now that I am fully committed to all these points, it's like the composition of who I am and what I'm made of and my actions and what I create is composed of that integrity of what I've based it on. And it's like this validity and this like thick, like it's like density. It's like I have density now to me. And it's like what I'm creating has density. It actually is composed of something and it's not
Substance.
just hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like you can build so much more and you can build so much more, so much faster. But also that's why these events are so cool, because these events have substance. They're not just hollow events where in the back of your mind, you kind of know that whoever's putting this on is just trying to make money. You know that these events have substance. You know that when you come here, these people have integrity. You know that people here are actively working to create a world that's best for all and walking their process. And it's like, you've literally never experienced anything like this before. You haven't. You just haven't. This is so unique. This is so unique. And I cannot stress enough how profound it is what we're doing.
Mhm.
And every person who's listening to this, every person who's active in the group, every person who's actively walking their process, you are the reason it's profound. It's not me. It's not Mitchell. It's not Drake. It's not Cameron. It's
Definitely not me.
because all of us collectively are choosing to walk this together as a community. That's why it's potent. That's why we have such an amazing thing. So you really have to realize that and take it on for yourself and realize you are an integral part of this process and a reason why all of this is happening. You may not be the one paying for this event. You may not be the one who got everyone to come to this event. but yet you're still the reason why this event is happening. Which is amazing.
That's really well said, Jess. So on that note, if you haven't gotten a ticket for the event, which I don't even know if there are any left, but let's assume there are, you need to reach out to Mitch or Jess. Maybe you're one of those people who was like, you want to go and you just kept putting it off and you're like, oh, I just can't. Like, I can't guarantee you something, but I can say if you go there with intention to shift yourself, you will get the support that you need. I can guarantee that.
Definitely.
And on that note, why don't we wrap it up? I don't know what we're going to call this one. I have to think about it.
Savior complex.
I think we have that
I feel
already.
like we have that.
We
Yeah.
definitely have something like that. It's like at a certain point, you're just like, fuck, let me ask. Well, I'm not going to ask Chat GPT. Like,
You could say like black.
what do you guys think? Hold on. In the chat, I don't know who's there.
Floating.
What do you
My
guys
head
wanna
is
call it?
floating.
Oh, I know we've got John in the chat. Mitch is on Jess's account in the chat.
Give us some suggestions real quick before we go.
Chat. What should we name it?
Owen was just in the chat. Owen, what should we call it? I'm in his house.
What should we name this podcast? What should
Tell
we
us,
name
or Jess
it?
will sing for another hour.
I'm gonna sing until we figure it out. What should we name this podcast? Podcast.
What about no one's got good ideas yet.
Wow. I don't need a good idea. I just need an idea.
Wow.
Not
Okay,
seeing-
I'm gonna share a story while they're commenting. Aristotle has started roaring.
That's what we
And
called
he
it.
it's like full on like in his throat, and he's like he literally sounds like he's almost that low too. It's like, whoa. I've never heard a child do that before. I don't know if he got it from the
That's because you only been
dogs.
around suppressed children.
Yeah, that's true.
No, like I'm telling you guys, since you guys it's your
Did you
first
have to
kid,
do a diaper change?
Caius is doing the same thing. So not like exactly the same, but I mean like the loud yelling all the time and just like, and I realized too, it's like with Caius, he'll like, if I'm holding something, he'll be like, "Ugh." And I'm like, oh, you want to hold it? I'm like, do you want to hold this or do you want or whatever? So I realized they're not being bad. I'm not saying you guys are saying that. I know you don't know that. I know you don't think that. Right. But it's like, it's normal. Right. But people suppress that. It's like, oh, mister, use your inside voice,
So we got some ideas.
Those are terrible ideas, guys.
You said you just needed ideas.
I know I said that, but I was just trying to be nice.
That's what happens when you're nice, Cameron. Just gets all
Yeah.
fun.
Oh, this is leading to a good one.
What?
That's it.
Ooh, where are you? I like that
I like, where's my charger?
one.
Dude, where's my charger?
Yeah, how
Remember
about
that
that?
movie, Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude, where's my car? Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, where's my purpose?
Yeah. Did we already put
I
this?
like
for
where are
everyone?
you? It's pretty ambiguous.
Where are you? Okay, cool. Done.
Okay,
Okay.
it's been settled.
Where are you? All right, everybody. Thanks for the input. And what is it? When is the event? In the beginning of June,
It's
right?
in
So-
31
about a
Like
month
days.
left.
82 days or something.
31 days.
Wow. Really soon.
it's cool because the kids are like they call it the party in California.
Yeah.
Like, when we go to that, when we're going to that, when we go to that party in California, like Seneca already has her bathing suit. Kitty had to stitch it up to like make it the right size or whatever. And so she was trying that on and she goes, can I get my floaty? I want to make sure it fits for the party, for when we're in California. She's like walking around in her bathing suit and her like floaty. And then she has a bunch of different dresses for the event. So like every day she's like wearing 5 different dresses and she cycles through them, and she'll come out and she'll look at me because she's wearing like the big fancy party dress. And she's like, it's okay, I'm wearing it. I'm like, it's fine. You can wear it. Just be careful with it. Right.
I love it.
Hilarious.
Very,
Love.
very female. Very female.
Yeah.
Hey, there's his growling.
He also likes to put his face on your skin and blow and make a farting noise. He just goes all the time.
It's cool to see you guys doing that. It's awesome. It'll be fun.
Thanks,
Now
Sean.
he's interesting because he's very big. So when he's about Caius's age, because Caius is at the developmental part where he's like I was wrestling with the kids on the carpet,
Mhm.
and then he comes over there and starts climbing all over me and like kind of like wrestling, but just like kind of mimicking what they're doing.
Mhm.
So when Aristotle's at that stage, you better watch out, Mitch.
I get a black eye.
Dude, Max, he's 6 and he's big for his age also. And like when he like will punch me in the face. Like when we're playing, you know, and like he'll kick and he's freaking strong, man. So
That's
just
awesome.
get ready for it, man.
I'm
Get
prepared.
ready. All right. Bye, Aristotle. We will
See
see
you
you.
guys.
We'll see you later.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.